Spring is in the air at Global Voice Broadcasting. Fresh new shows are hitting the airwaves every day. Shows about all the things that matter to you in your life. Music, fashion, celebs, and more. It's all here, and it's getting better every day. Only at Global Voice Broadcasting.
I highly recommend Ms. Hicks. Her books, her CDs are encouraging.
I bought her book, A Hill to Climb. She's a very inspirational speaker.
And I look forward to one day being able to work with her.
Your power lies within you. Let it loose.
Aspiration, inspiration, motivation, edification, determination. These are the keys of life success brought to you by none other than award-winning author, motivational lecturer, business consultant, and much more as she gets you aimed to your purpose. And now, ladies and gentlemen, young and elder, from Hollywood to the entire world, here is your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, Louise Hicks, along with her co-host, yours truly, Kenan Wesley Mason.
Hello world, how is everybody? Thank you all for joining us again this beautiful Monday. I'm Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show.
And I am your co-host, Kenan Wesley Mason, and we want to welcome each and every one of you, as always. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be around the world. We want to thank all of you as we do the best we can to bring you the most in dynamic radio for the internet, and we have part 2 of a two-part series from last week as we welcome back Mr. Jim Phillips to Aim to Purpose, the radio show.
That's right. Excuse me, Jim Phillips, the key to life. And joining us, of course, our commentator, Shamika Brown, as with her community and entertainment news, as well as Robert Snell with his sports therapy.
Yes. And actually, what we're going to do right now is, she wasn't here last week, but she is here this week. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Miss Shamika Brown. What you got for us, Shamika?
Hello, people. I'm back. So sorry I missed y'all last week. I was dealing with these allergies, so bear with me as I work through this report. But I definitely want to give you the goods in entertainment this week. You know, a lot was happening last week, so we got to catch up, right?
Yes.
So let's jump into the box office report. Insurgent doing pretty well with number 1, $52.2 million.
Wow.
Cinderella, remember I gave you guys the scoop that was coming, so shout out to Disney. Cinderella, $34.9 million. And then Run All Night, $5 million in number 3 spot. Okay, and so in international, Cinderella number 1 with $62.4 million, and The Kingsman, $13.7 million. And Focus is hanging in at number 3 for international, $13.6 million. So I'd also like to give you guys some upcoming releases that are on my radar. Don't know if y'all have heard, but Kevin Hart and Will Ferrell are coming to the box office this weekend with Get Hard. And so if you don't know this,
Yeah, I heard about that.
We'll see what happens because, critics are already laying in on this one. But basically, James King is nailed for fraud and bound for San Quentin. He turns to Darnell Lewis to prep him to go behind bars. And so here's the buzz. Critics are already saying that this is their least favorite Will Ferrell movie. My point of view is that even though Kevin Hart and Will Ferrell are totally bankable, is it possible that they don't have that synergy on screen? I'm wondering about that because, too much of a good thing can sometimes tap out, right?
Would make me question that.
Yeah.
Oversaturation of one
funny.
Kevin Hart. And it reminds me of how they used to do Richard Pryor back in the day. They put him with John Candy and
just overkill
with Brewster's Millions, and they the toy and just everything was now a couple of generations later. Now Kevin Hart is everywhere, and they're pairing him with whoever is still hot or
Right.
relevant for today. They did it with Ice Cube last year.
Right.
Now they're doing it with Will Ferrell, trying to get all the markets.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I mean, although Ride Along was pretty awesome, but
Oh, yeah.
we'll have to see what happens this weekend. I think people are still going to go see it. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I still
Of course
think
people
people
will
will
go
check it
see
out.
it. Of course.
But you know,
Of course.
it's still kind of, it might be a little bit oversaturated. So
Yes.
next release is Home, and this is
Yeah.
the animated DreamWorks picture starring Rihanna.
Mm-hmm.
So this is her first debut. You know, starring in a film. Just happens to be
Heard
animated.
about that one too.
Yes.
Along with Jennifer Lopez, Steve Martin, and Jim Parsons. So
Rihanna's animated now.
yeah. So
Interesting.
now here's another thing, and this is a precursor, not coming out till April 3rd, but the box office is just a buzz about Fast and Furious 7.
Right.
Okay, so you know that this is still bringing all the cast back, but this is Paul Walker's last film. He passed away, as you guys will remember, last year. And so, just 2 weeks short of its Easter weekend release, many industry estimates are projecting that Furious 7 will open at 115 million. Excuse me.
Wow.
And that figure would crown the film's largest April opener ever. So, topping last year's Captain America, just basically talking about how this film is just set to do some amazing numbers.
Right.
And this is all pre-sale tickets. Fandango is reporting that it's already just a crazy numbers coming in. So,
And for a
We'll
seventh
see.
and for a seventh installment,
can
that's
you believe it?
Yeah, I mean that's huge.
It's amazing. It is amazing. So,
Yeah, that
so
is
and a
huge.
lot of this is due to the social media. You know, saying how the actors are really in there. They're doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
promotion, and so social media has really kind of helped push this thing over the edge.
That's right.
So yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. So Easter weekend, check that out.
Will do.
Okay, so moving on to some TV news. If you ain't watching Empire,
Uh-oh.
you're under a rock or something.
Oh,
going
my
on.
goodness.
Finishes big with the highest rated season 1 finale in over a decade. So
Oh, yeah.
shout out to Fox
Oh, yeah.
for that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
We'll give
yeah.
them a round of applause
Yeah,
for
let's
that.
just give them a little
That
something.
is interesting. They
Because
are creating buzz.
When I say, and then again, thanks to social media, this is an event. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I already know Wednesday, everybody gonna be like, well, what do we do with ourselves? Because Empire is
It's over
on
for
hiatus
now. Yeah.
until January of 2016.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
January of 2016.
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, I tell you what, listeners, viewers, start building your own empire, because the power of social media, I tell you, is really powerful. There have been pictures on there about Empire, and they are saying, you take 1 hour, you can watch Empire. Why not take 30 minutes and start building your own empire? Because you know my saying, your power lies within you. So you better start letting it loose and build your own empire between that time. And that's a good time span.
Yeah.
How about it?
Yeah. I mean, that was going to be one of my questions. You know, what does your empire look like? You know, we have all of these parties. We want to go. We want to
Yes.
watch it. Is it a distraction? A little bit of a distraction for people. You know, are you escaping from your own reality and submerging yourself into
Well,
Empire, Scandal, and
that's
all these
right.
other shows? You know, kind of like
Have and have nots, but
Yeah,
I think it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
If you put it in the proper perspective, because it is entertainment. So if you're putting it in perspective and you know your own reality, and that's the good thing, we have Jim Phillips coming on, the
Yeah.
author of this dynamic book here, The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. So if you are living in full expression, which is life, you will have it in proper perspective. So you can build your own empire.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Yeah, I think it's just a little food for thought, you know what I mean? Because you see that Fox is not hurting, you know, the numbers are going to keep coming in. People are going to keep watching.
They have, and they have their critics as well. People
Yeah.
have criticized Empire for being a quote stereotypical. It's bringing out the stereotypes of
Right.
of black people. I mean, you have this. The plot is a music industry mogul that has all these things going on in his
Right,
life,
yeah.
you know, but he's still successful. And, but obviously he has a slanted past. So, you know, it throws that's where the drama dynamic comes from. It is entertainment, but it has a hint of reality as well, because these type of things really do go on in the music industry.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's very true. And if I may, and then we can kind of segue to sports therapy. But I want to
yes.
just make a point, because this is a soap opera, just like all of the daytime soaps that come on during the day, and that stuff is salacious and a hot mess too.
Of course.
So it's interesting how we're ready to jump on. Well, it is about image, and I think it is important to kind of be mindful of that, but at the same token, it's entertainment.
Entertainment.
Yeah, and like
Absolutely.
you can't trip too hard. I would only say that if you're going to watch Empire, then hopefully you're home thinking of how you can build your own.
That's
So
right.
And
that's
it's
that.
not billed as a reality show either.
No, it's
it's
not.
billed
This
as
is actually-
entertainment, so that makes a difference, and it's fiction. So
Yes.
let's move on,
that's
because we got to get to some sports therapy here.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to just move on. And
Thank you, Shamika.
You're welcome.
Great report.
You're welcome.
with that being said, Robert Snell with sports therapy.
Thank
What
you.
you got for us, Robert?
Thank you, Kenan. And don't forget to help us build our own social media empire by following the Aim to Purpose radio show on Twitter at Aim to Purpose. And you can follow me at Arsenal Radio. But as I highlighted last week, March is all about March Madness in the NCAA tournaments. Unfortunately, though, there wasn't too much madness going on. It was actually kind of subdued. The tournament looked like it was going to play out that way, opening up with both Georgia State and UAB pulling off major upsets in the opening round. And over Iowa State and Baylor. And then moving forward into the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, really toned down kind of the traditional powers the schools we're used to seeing year after year making Sweet 16 did.
Right.
There were a few upsets, though. Number 7, Wichita State upset number 2 in-state rival Kansas, which is a large deal in that state. Wichita State has numerously tried to get a game against Kansas, and Kansas just won't schedule them. So
Right.
This was a huge victory for them, monumental for the state of Kansas. Go Shockers. Also upsetting was number 7 Michigan State over number 2 Virginia. The Cavaliers were actually a team that some thought got robbed of a number 1 seeding, and they didn't even end up surviving the first weekend. So, maybe they didn't get that number 1 overall.
Right.
And then finally, the biggest upset of all was the number 8 NC State Wolfpack over the number 1 Villanova Wildcats. And Villanova was actually a school that I called out as a school that possibly got a number 1 seeding due to their national following and so-called prestige winning the Big East. But as I predicted, the Big East did not live up to the hype, was not worthy of its major conference accolades, and did not produce a worthy number 1.
Right. Oh, well.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Moving forward, also, there's been talk of rumblings in Cleveland in the NBA that there's trouble in paradise, and LeBron James wants to be the sole leader and the king of his throne, and Kevin Love is causing trouble in his kingdom.
Right.
There's been a lot.
Hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot made of Kevin Love not always closing out games. David Blatt often sits him in the fourth quarter during crunch time. And there's people who are wondering, will he return to Cleveland next year? And, everyone going into the year thought that LeBron found his new big three. He left Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and he found a new big three that he was going to form with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Well,
Right.
There was a lot made in the past about how Chris Bosh had to really accept that, third fiddle and really was kept out of the spotlight and, got a lot of the grief and not a lot of the accolades when they won.
That's right.
And Kevin Love's kind of, fell into that same role, but he hasn't been as willing as Bosh was to accept it and fall back. And that's kind of, led to some tension in Cleveland. And people are wondering, will Kevin Love return next year? There will be an increased salary cap, so he will have a lot of teams looking to sign him to a max deal, and
Right.
if he wants that max deal, he probably won't get in Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, LeBron is, he is the number 1 player in the NBA right now. He's been for the last few years. If his teammates don't want to play third wheel, obviously they're gonna say something about it. They know it's gonna get media attention.
Right.
What do they call him? King James?
They
That's
do
right.
call him- That's his Twitter handle, King James 23.
Right, King James.
That's right. Yeah. So we'll see how all that unfolds.
That money over there too.
I
Yeah.
know.
Well,
right.
the thing is people are going to write this off as overall disappointment if they don't at least make it to the finals, probably even if they don't win it all, which is obviously lofty to unrealistic expectation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
it
course.
is.
Especially in his first year back. But, with all the endorsement deals and media attention and stuff like that, everyone always looks to LeBron to get
Of
a ring.
I think
or
there's a lot of
course.
pressure on LeBron, even in the sense that,
he's there for the team, but
Yeah.
obviously he came back with something to prove, I think. So.
Right. Well, the way he left,
Pressure.
and then the way he, left Miami
Yeah,
to
and
come
then-
back,
Yeah.
it's been a bittersweet career for him,
Mm-hmm.
because while he's done well, if you just look at the numbers off the court, it's led to a lot of controversy and, people who hate him, or dislike. So,
Of course.
yeah.
And the people who love him.
Right.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
then looking ahead to next week, you guys can all get excited for my MLB 2015 season preview. That's right, baseball is back, and I'm here to break down who's going to win each division and my
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
That'll be
Interesting.
awesome.
Yeah, go to Vegas with it.
There you go. Go to
Sounds good
Vegas
to me.
with it. All right.
Better leave everything in Vegas now when you go.
One thing I wanted to mention before I go. Hey,
Yes.
I'm still back here.
Yes,
Hey, guys.
yes.
Okay, so I wanted to mention that we are calling for advertisers. If you or someone you know wants to advertise with us, please email us at aimedtopurpose@gmail.com. That is aimed, the number 2, purpose@gmail.com. And again, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Aim to Purpose everything, y'all. So
Absolutely.
see you next week. Thank you so much.
And YouTube, Aim to Purpose
Yeah, it's just
Radio.
everywhere.
Subscribe to
Just
us.
everywhere.
That's
Yes.
our brand.
Yeah, and you
Aimed,
can find-
AIMED, the number 2, Purpose.
And we've got all of the show archives there. And so we look forward to seeing you out there in social media land.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great.
All right. So, with that being said, we're going to take our first commercial break, and then we're going to come back with our special guest for part 2 of this conversation with Jim Phillips.
And this book, The Key to Life,
There it
Living
is.
in Full Expression.
Yes.
Dynamic book with our amazing Jim Phillips. So we'll be right back.
Hey folks, it's Ken here. If you or someone you know around the world has a small business, organization, or foundation you'd like to share with the Aim to Purpose audience, showcase it here on our segment of the show called Small Business Monday. The opportunities for people around the world to browse, buy, and use your products and services are endless. We pre-screen all businesses, organizations, and foundations for legitimacy, but because this is a free community service brought to our audience, it's at no cost to you as well. You heard it right. It's absolutely free, and you don't have to pay 1 penny. How do you like that? You just come on down to the studio and tell the story of your business, organization, or foundation and give it the praises and accolades you know it deserves. If you're in another part of the state or country, or if you're in another part of the world, you can easily call in or Skype in and do the same. So what are you waiting for? Contact the show's publicist, Shamika Brown, at www.divinebrownmedia.com. She can also be contacted at 1-818-533-8463. Or contact Louise Hicks at www.louisehicks.biz. She can also be contacted at 1-562-310-1495. Allow yourself to be seen by the global masses and allow your business to shine and grow because of the global masses. It's Small Business Monday, courtesy of Aim to Purpose, the radio show.
Hello, world. Once again, we're back. Again, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show. And we're just going to jump right into our featured guest today. And we're going to tell you a little bit about Jim Phillips.
Yes, really quick. Jim, as we mentioned last week, he's a gifted speaker, seminar leader, a certified life and business coach. For the better part of 30 years, he's been an entrepreneur, a business leader, inspiring others to higher levels of achievement through his presentations and seminars throughout the United States and parts of Europe. His true passions, however, is the exploration and application of spiritual law as it applies to prosperity and overall quality of life. Jim is residing in Aldie, Virginia, and his book title, once again, is
The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression.
The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. And with that being said, we want to welcome back to Aim to Purpose, the radio show, Jim Phillips.
Hello, Jim, and welcome back.
Hi, Louise. How are you tonight?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you for coming back to share more of this amazing book, The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. And last week, we wanted to get you back, and we are so happy and appreciate you coming back because the book is so dynamic and it's such an amazing, expressive, powerful book that really empowers you to find out about self, capital SELF. And Jim takes us on an amazing journey of finding out how to live life and in living in full expression. And last week, just to recap a little bit, Jim has many quotes in this book, and they're so powerful because they really get to the core of how we can live in full expression of our lives and make the right choices for ourselves, because we know each one of us is unique. And he talked about faith, which is fully allow it to happen. And I like that acronym for faith, fully allow it to happen. And if you are living in your life in full expression, you will fully allow it to happen. So once again, thank you, Jim. And we're just going to jump right in here and go straight to the book. I wanted to ask you something about what's on page 44, in which you talk about contributing everything to God. And as you know, I've read this book, and I would ask everybody to read it because it is a dynamic book. And you talk about God's will, and you say here, in the Lord's Prayer, we say, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." What is God's will? Do we really know? Explain that, because what is God's will, and do we really know?
Well, I'm not going to say that I know exclusively what God's will is. I have an idea just through my personal study, my contemplation, meditations that I do, and just really thinking through that whole process. What I've discovered in talking to a lot of people is that regardless of what event or experience somebody might have in life, people will say, well, it must be God's will. If something difficult happens to somebody, they'll say, well, it must be God's will. And I'm going to disagree with that, because I don't think God wills there to be any difficulty or challenge or hardship.
That's right.
To fall on anybody.
That's right.
So I just don't accept that. So I started asking questions, and the question was, if we look at every human being as being a child of God, which is the way that we're referenced, and I look at it as being a parent myself. Well, what is it I would want most for my child? Or what is it I would want most for my children? And typically the answer is going to be joy, peace, happiness, success, safety, prosperity, all of those things we want. Well, then that raises the question, well, why would God want anything less than that for us?
That's right.
I don't believe God would. I believe that is God's will for us to live as fully and completely as we possibly can. I think that's where free will comes in, where we have the opportunity to choose the experiences of life that we have. And everything is truly based on choice. And it's interesting because when you make a choice, let me back up a second. We have the opportunity to make a choice. What we can't choose are the consequences. So that's why we have to be very intentional when we make a choice, because each choice we make is going to have circumstances that come as a result of that choice. And then, of course, we make other choices based on those circumstances. And whenever those circumstances show up, we make choices based on that.
That's right.
So life basically is one choice after another. The more intentional we are about the type of life we want to live, the better our choices are going to be that help lead us to that particular course in life. So if we get back to God's will, and I believe God's will is that I live prosperously, I live with joy and happiness and peace and love, I live with my fellow human, and we're here to work and support each other and be a part of the community. Well, I can make choices that allow that to happen, but I can also make choices that would deny that. And I think that if it's denied, it's not because that's God's will, it's because that's what I've chosen, and that has nothing to do with God.
Yes, So agreed, and I think Ken wanted to.
Yeah, I
comment
agree.
on that,
I
too.
agree wholeheartedly. It's just like the person that says that when they're diagnosed with cancer or diabetes or what have you, they say that, oh, it must be God's will for a person to be ill, but it's based on choice of lifestyle, choice of certain habits, choice of certain thinking patterns. We all have the power to change whatever we want, and then God or whatever you believe in will act accordingly towards that. So God's will is whatever you want it to be.
I really like the way you put that, and that's one of the other reasons I keep saying this, that I like this book so much, because your journey in this book really gives a lot of light to some of our beliefs, and everyone, of course, has a right to believe how they wish to believe. However, when you read this book, it really opens your mind up to get a different light on various matters, and it brings to mind one of the Napoleon Hill books, and I really like his books. The one that was just released in 2011 that was not released, although it was written back in 1938, I believe, or the late 30s. And it wasn't released because he feared that if this book was released at that time, it would be repercussions for him. And I've read it along with some of his other books, particularly Think and Grow Rich, and I think the 16 Successes. I can't remember the exact title of it. But this book, Outwitting the Devil, written by Napoleon Hill back in 1938,
Yes.
really brings to light so much of what you're talking about now, Jim, because we often put things off on God's will, when we act in accordance to how we're living our life and live in full expression, we can get a different outcome on our lives. Like you had spoken with me about and helped me to understand when this person ran into me, I was part of that creation because I was there. I could have chosen to go a different path, but I chose that route to go. So you put things in such great perspective, and you talk in the book about doubting oneself and our belief. How does doubting come into play? And I want to talk a little bit about this, what you call NDE, the near-death experience, because sometimes, as Ken mentioned, when you get these diseases or in other things, you can have a near-death experience, and sometimes we doubt ourselves, and often people survive different illnesses and things because they don't have doubt. And you talk about that in the book as well, so I wanted you to expound upon that, how our beliefs and our doubts can really help alleviate some of the problems and help us to live with that joy and peace and all of that.
Well, I'll approach doubt first. And the thing I'll say about doubt is there's only one thing we should doubt, and that's our limitations.
Like that.
There's nothing that we're limited from other than our beliefs about what we can or can't do. That's really the only thing that's in our way. And, people will say, well, physically I can't do this particular thing, but it's probably something that they don't want to do anyway. An example that I was given a long time ago, and you guys have probably heard of this too, would be like if Shaq wanted to be a jockey.
Right.
And get on a horse. Of course, he's bigger than 3 horses.
Right.
I know.
But
Right.
the fact of the matter is, Shaq doesn't want to be a jockey. So that's not even a reasonable example for people to use. But anything anybody truly wants to do, the opportunity for them to do that will be there. And I'm not talking about somebody truly wanting to do something because it'll gain them fame or it'll gain them money or some kind of prestige. It's something they truly desire that comes from their heart, and it's really it gets to the heart and the core of living in full expression, whatever that is inside of each one of us. And we all have an expression waiting to be expressed during each lifetime. Whatever that is, when we give it the space to start to emerge and to be expressed, absolutely everything that's necessary for that expression to take place is provided. And that's where we get back to the word faith. If we would get out of our own way and allow the expression to take form, pay attention to all of the opportunities and the support that we're being given, then it's going to happen. I read something the other day, and I just thought this was really cool. The word inspire, and actually I put this in the new book that just came out, From Inspiration to Intention. Inspire means to breathe life into. So when we're inspired to do something, then essentially we're having life breathed into us, because that's inspiring us to start taking action on it. But when we start taking action on it, that's us breathing life into whatever the inspiration is, or the expression within us that wants to be expressed. Now, we've also heard that as you take action and you start moving towards and doing all those things you can to bring about that which you are trying to experience or express, that the universe conspires with us.
That's right.
The word conspire means to breathe with. And
Hello?
I just thought that
Jim?
was a really cool connection.
Oh, we thought we
Inspiration, first
had
of all,
a
is
little bit
breathing
of
life
technical.
into. Then when we allow the universe to work with us, it's the universe breathing with us.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the universe is open to each and every one of us, and we all have access. We all have access to the universe to get that energetic help based on what we want, and what kind of path we want to lead for our lives. You mentioned Shaq. It was his lifelong dream to be that basketball player and be that dominant basketball player, and he worked towards that, and the universe bended his way in order for him to become the great ball player that he has become, or that he was at one time. Yes. And we all have that access.
Yeah, we do. And you talk about turning challenges into opportunities, and sometimes people give up because they see these challenges in their lives and they forget, particularly sometimes if they don't have a mentor or somebody to inspire them, as you mentioned, and they tend to give up rather than looking at the opportunity that can come out of the challenge. And
I think if everybody would look at their own lives, and the two of you as well, have you ever had anything difficult happen to you?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Many times.
Of course.
Now, would you be the person you are today if you hadn't gone through that experience?
No. It wouldn't be, because of the lessons that came out of it.
Right. And most people would say, I don't want to go through it again. However, I wouldn't change a thing if I could start over again, because of what I went through, what I gained in terms of my knowing of who I am and what I'm now capable of, and who I've become in the process.
And most people don't want to go through that process for fear of a pitfall or a difficulty, not really realizing or having the cognition that that pitfall could be one of the greatest things or circumstances that can happen. Jump over that hurdle or go through that hurdle, and then you're on that path to being a stronger person in the mind, and you'll have it builds confidence to go through some of these difficulties.
It really does. And something you said, I love these quotes you have in the book, Jim, and on page 59 where you talk about it gets into about the belief. And the quote is, "It is unfortunate that we are too often fearful of what might happen instead of emboldened by what we might create." And that is so true, because we do fear sometimes what might happen. And when you ask about that, have we had some things that have happened to us that could have deterred us, and that's so true. And when you talked about, I wanted to bring this up because you talked about the NDE, the near-death experience, in the book, and I had an experience like that when I had Ken, my son that's here with me. He is my biological son, and I had at childbirth, a near-death experience. And when people talk about they see that light, and I did see all of that, and I have gone through that, and I know what that is like. It's a devastating experience. And when you go through that experience, I know with myself, I just recall surrendering and not even thinking anything. And the next thing I knew, I was awake, and I survived the childbirth of my oldest child, Kenan, here with me. So we look back, and I look back at that experience, and I said it happened for a reason. I don't know what the reason was, but maybe it was a teaching me how to just surrender my life at that time. And even now, when you're faced with challenges, sometimes we do have to surrender and move forward.
Well, let me give you what just came up for me when you said that. And anybody can take this in whatever way they want. But when you went through that experience and you surrendered, you came back to life.
Yes.
So what if in life, on this planet now, in human form, we were to surrender to life and actually come to life and live life more fully and completely as who we are?
Yes.
So it's what you experience is really a metaphor for what we can experience, and I think one of our reasons for being here, which is really embrace life fully and completely and wholly, and not resist it. Understand that everything that happens, every experience that we have is for our benefit. And when we surrender to that understanding, life becomes amazing, because then we're not looking at what's going to happen to us. We're open to what's going to happen for us, so that we can continue to expand our experience of ourselves.
That is so true. And I get that. It's so true. I get it. And you talk more about imagination. I like that, how we use our imagination to expand our full expression in life. So, and that's, I love the page that you bring that out on, about how we use our imagination. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's on. But go ahead and share with us, Jim, while I look it up in the book, how we use our imagination to live in full expression of our life.
Well, our imagination is what's creating our life experiences, whether they're the life experiences we desire to have or whether the life experiences we're having by default. Because our thoughts are tied to our imagination. So if you imagine something difficult is going to happen, then the likelihood is you're going to have that experience. If we can put our focus and use our imagination towards something that would be wonderful, enjoyable, joyful, then the likelihood is we're going to have that experience as well. Because it's an energy that we're putting out while we're using our creative mind that is going to draw to us those opportunities that are associated with whatever it is that we might be imagining. And there's a quote that I have in the book, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to give it to you precisely as it was written, but it has to do with imagination and not being able to imagine what we want because we've already imagined that it can't be.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's really looking at imagination from both sides of the spectrum. And that's what I'm talking about. But our imagination is our gift. We can create virtually any situation we want.
That's right.
While we're sitting in a chair, walking down the street, or having a conversation with somebody. And here's getting to limiting beliefs, because we talked about this a little bit last week too. And it's an unfortunate part of using our imagination, and that is that too many times our imagination is limited because of the beliefs we hold about what is possible, so that we only imagine to that level. And what I tell people to do, and I say, imagine your life as grand as you can. And then give them some time to do that, and they'll say, okay, I'm good. I say, okay, now imagine it grander. Get beyond it. Allow yourself to just go, and don't be tied with any thoughts or feelings or anything, because none of it matters. We're not judging it. We're just trying to see how free we can be. We're here as creators, so what can you create? What's the most magnificent you could possibly create?
That is so,
Yep.
I love that, and how you bring out about us appreciating ourselves, because sometimes we don't appreciate who we are, and we need to learn to appreciate the person that the self that we are, and we don't always do that and become that responsible person. And we want to also talk about these 4 cycles of life that you talk about, but before we get into that, you said something in the book about it's all about me. And sometimes we hear people say, stay away from me because it's not about me. Explain that. And then after you explain that, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk about the cycles that you talk about of life.
Okay. Well, when I talk about it's all about me, I'm speaking specifically about me or you if you're in your life, and Kenan in his life, and anybody. I am the authority of my life. And this is not to take God out of the picture. So I don't want people to misunderstand that. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But being here in the earth plane as Jim Phillips, I am the authority in my life. I make every decision for myself. Now, I can allow people to influence me, and I might take somebody else's opinion and make a decision based on that, which is essentially giving them my power. But I'm ultimately the authority in my life. So when I say it's all about me, it is. Everything that I do is about me creating the experience for myself. And it's not from an egotistical standpoint. It's about, I want to live the best life I possibly can. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to be prosperous. I want to benefit other people. I want to see my children happy. I want to see my friends happy. I want to see other people successful. But I can't help people become that unless I'm that myself.
Right.
So the decisions that I make have to be about me becoming that person first, or that being, if you will, first. And then from that place of my full, complete beingness of living in full expression and living from the heart and being compassionate and caring and loving, then I'm able to share that with other people, if nothing more than being an example to them of what's possible through who I am.
That is so true,
Yeah.
and you explained it so eloquently, and I loved how you expressed that, because some people don't understand what that really means about me, because how can you help someone else if you don't know who you are really? And
Yeah.
you really explained that well.
Yeah, you can't be a leader to anyone unless you have mastered or at least have some kind of awareness of leading yourself down your path, and people will begin to follow your example because you've taken it upon yourself to lead yourself, which means that it will resonate with someone else and they will want to lead themselves as well right along with you.
And
That's exactly right.
That's how we should be looking at it, and how you can live your life in full expression. And we're not going to take a break. We're going to just go right into this, because I want to really have you to explain these 4 cycles of life, Jim, that you talk about in the book on page 157. The first one being reflection. So can you, and reflection, revelation, reconciliation, and resurrection. So can you explain about those briefly?
Yes. The cycles of life, and I want to just point out again that where it uses the word life, it's about living in full expression. So this is cycles of living in full expression. And living in full expression is really our living from our hearts as our true self, as our true essence, who we know we are at the core, and expressing whatever that is that we're here to more fully express and experience during this lifetime. And these 4 phases that I describe in the book, or the 4 phases of the cycle, they can happen multiple times in a lifetime, or your whole lifetime can be one 4-cycle phase. There's not any time associated with it. It just depends on that particular soul's journey and how they're approaching life and what they're here to experience. But the first one, as you mentioned, Louise, is reflection. And I call this the questioning phase. And this is where most people that start to embark on a greater understanding of their spiritual self begin. It's reflecting on what's life about. It's reflecting on, why am I here? What have I done since I've been here? What's my life's purpose? what is my relationship to all of these other people that are in and out of my life? So we start to look at life and we question it, and we start to wonder and really start to come to our own truth instead of looking at what other people have told us or what we've read in books or what we might have seen in a movie. It's really about getting real with ourselves. And then the revelation phase is the one after reflection, and that's really when we start to look at all that we discovered during the reflection phase, and we start to realize that who we thought we were, we're really not. We also realize that a lot of what we held to be true is not. And then we realize, well, if what I held as true is not really true, how far from the truth am I?
Right.
And when I went through this process, that's kind of scary. When you realize that you could be so far off center being truth, if you will, and yet we make all of our life decisions based against what we hold true. So the premise behind this is that everybody would spend time questioning life and questioning why they believe what they believe instead of just accepting what mass consciousness would say is true. Then we'll find that we're going to be making better decisions because we're not following the herd. And it's not about being disrespectful to people, it's about being truthful to yourself. And when it was said that to thine own self be true, that's what this is all about. It's about really living from your own truth. So revelation is really getting to that point where we have that aha. We start to really recognize and understand that things aren't what we thought they were. There's a lot more to life than we thought life was all about, and certainly much more to ourselves. And then reconciliation is the next one, where we reconcile that. We start to accept and appreciate and integrate all of this new understanding and belief that we discovered about ourselves and about life. We start to look at how we can incorporate it into our daily lived experience, how we can incorporate it into our thoughts and beliefs, how we can incorporate it into our belief and understanding about who we are, and certainly within our relationships with other people, because that's where it's going to be reflected back to us. What we see outside of ourselves is a reflection to us of what we truly are inside. And as you start to go through this process and you start to reconcile these new understandings, and it's about, another word to use is recalibration. We're kind of recalibrating who we are. Mm-hmm. And you'll start to see that reflected to you through the people that you now associate with. They're going to be looking at you differently. They're going to be acting towards you differently. Some may say you're completely crazy, but you're going to know because you're going to be much more centered in the truth of who you are.
Yes.
And then the final phase is resurrection. And the words that I used in here, it's a rising up from the metaphorical death of our previous expression of self. And so we get to that point where we realize that who we were is not who we are. And we allow it to die. And again, it's metaphorical. We're not physically dying, but that concept or that perception of ourselves no longer exists. We have a new, much grander concept of ourselves. We're experiencing and expressing ourselves in a much grander way because of the newfound knowledge and understanding and experience of ourselves that we've had as we went through these other three phases. And we're in the resurrection phase, and we can be there for a period of time. And then we start to think again. We start to question again. And then that's when we go back to the reflection phase. And it doesn't mean that when you leave resurrection and you go back to reflection, you're taking a step back. You're not. It's the expansion process.
Right.
You're going through the cycle again to have another experience and a much deeper and grander experience and understanding of who you are. And then you go through the cycle again. And that's why I say it can happen one time in a lifetime, depending upon that particular soul's journey. It can happen 20 times. It doesn't really matter. But it's something that's done, it's not done consciously. Now that people can see what it is, they can say, well, this is where I am. But most of the time we just do it because of how we're essentially evolving as we go through the process. And we look back on it usually and say, oh, that's what that was about. And this is who I am now. This is my understanding of who I am now versus who I thought I was.
Yes.
Yeah. We have to clear all of the negative mind clutter, if you will. That way we can kind of have some free space in the mind to think of better things and better ways to live in a way that makes us completely happy and joyous. And the world is definitely bigger than our beliefs, we do need to step into a place where most people can, I guess, know that the world is all of ours for the taking. We just have to, I guess, have a certain knowingness, or come into a certain knowingness or awareness that there is nothing to fear. Everything is in our favor, and which includes all of the quote negatives, or the pitfalls, or the horrible things that come our way through our journey to that promised land. And and that is the key to life, to live in that full expression, to know that you are your greatest ally, and no one can take that away from you.
And expanding, like you said, and your quotes. Like I said, I love your quotes. Which quote do you feel is most inspirational out of the book, Jim? Or can you define one that you would select to be the most inspirational?
There are two that I resonate with the most, because they were the ones that I really leaned on when I was writing the book. And during the process of writing the book, I also went through a tremendous amount of personal experiences, because I had to live those things before I could put it onto paper in a way that would get people to understand really what it was that I was talking about. Theory is one thing, but when you can write and speak experientially, and people can hear your emotion and your passion and the truth of the experience I had, which could be totally different for somebody else. So I can only speak from my own perspective. But I think people, they resonate with it more, because they see that it's real and it's not me talking about somebody else's experience. So having said that, when I was writing the book, doubt crept up every time it wanted to about who was I to be writing a book of this nature? Why did I think I had something of value to say? Why did I think anybody would ever buy it? All of these things kept showing up. And during one of my early morning walks, and this was early on in the writing of the book, I was just walking and I was having these doubts and things that were showing up and basically telling me I wasn't good enough to do what I was doing. And this quote came into my mind, and it was, "You would not be inspired to do something if it wasn't intended to be."
That's a good one.
And so, yeah, and so whenever I would get to that point, and there's a second part to it that I'll share in a second, when I got to that point of having difficulty in writing, because I would have these thoughts and beliefs about whether or not what I was writing was good enough or valuable to anybody who might want to read it, I would say, well, I've been inspired to do this, so obviously it's intended to be. And then the second part of the quote is, if it is intended to be, all for it to be will be provided.
Yes.
And so I held on to that when I was writing it, and whenever I needed something, it would show up. If it was a story that I needed, I would meet somebody, or if there was another difficulty that I was going through, I would pick up a newspaper or pick up a magazine, or something would be sent to me in an email that would be exactly what I needed to look at whatever the situation was I was going through a different set of eyes. And then the other quote, and this one I've had for quite some time, and this was really when I started to go through those 4 cycles, or the 4 phases of the cycle of life, and it was, today what I know to be true, tomorrow might not be.
That I like that one. That was one of the favorite ones of mine in the book too, because often what we do hold true today might not be, and I really like that quote as well. That was one of the greatest ones that I liked out of the book too, because it was such a powerful quote, because we all hold these truths, and then we find out, we come to our own realization that that was true yesterday, but it's not necessarily my truth today. So that's a great one. And we are kind of getting short of time, so we need to get some final thoughts from you. I'd like for you to, we have less than 5 minutes left, so we just want to kind of wrap things up. And what would you like for the readers of your book to, the main point I would say to take away, and give us some final thoughts and how we can contact you, Jim?
Well, I think that the main thing that I want people to do when they read this book, and really if they read anything that I write, is not to read it with the intention of saying, I want to be like Jim. Read it understanding that it's my perspective, and that what I'm trying to help them do is come to their own truth and understanding. Use some of the methods, if you will, that I used to come to the point that I have with my knowing and understanding. But it's not about me saying this is the way that it is. This is the way that it is for me. What you're to do, what's your purpose for being here, is to discover what way is best for you to live your life so that you're joyful, that you're happy, that you're prosperous, that you're healthy, that you're sharing your true essence as fully and completely as you possibly can by living in full expression. And allow that inspiration that's within you, that's wanting to be expressed, let it out. Pay attention to it. See what shows up. Follow the guidance that you're going to be given as a result of that, and know that you wouldn't be inspired to do it if it wasn't intended to be.
That's so true. And your how to contact you, as well as give us the name of your new book so that we can be on the lookout for it.
Okay. Well, the new book is from inspiration to intention, and I believe you all have it on your website.
Yes.
So people can download it, and it's $4.57 if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And it's an ebook. If they download it, they'll also be given some free gifts from some really inspirational, incredible people that are friends of mine that have been generous enough to provide some other gifts that are also gifts that are going to help people improve their lives and become more empowered to live the life that they want. So they can go to your website and they can get that book and those free gifts from that.
Yeah, so be sure and get the free gifts, because it's in this book. I'm sure I haven't read this one because it just came out and I've downloaded it as well. But this one here, the key to life.
The Key to Life.
It's a very powerful and empowering book, living in full expression. And Jim, we thank you so much for coming on. You want to give a final thought, and we have to get out because we're out of time pretty much.
Any final words for you, Jim, before we wrap up?
Because we are out of time.
If anybody wants to contact me, my website's prosperitybydesign.com, and all of my other contact information is on there, and other free information. And in fact, you can actually order the Key to Life Living in Full Expression on there if you want, and you can get a signed copy if you live in the United States. And I say that because shipping costs are prohibitive for me to sign it and ship it outside the country.
Yes.
And that's prosperitybydesign.com.
Correct.
All right.
Yes. And thank you so much, Jim, for coming back this second week to really expand upon our knowledge and help us to understand the key to life and how to live in full expression.
And to fully allow it to happen. And now, real quick, you're almost like the acronym king, like my mom is the acronym queen. Is there an acronym for SELF as well that I remember from last week?
No, there's not. There's an acronym for SOUL.
SOUL, okay.
Yeah, SOUL is source of unconditional love.
Source of unconditional love.
Source of unconditional love. That's a good one. Love it. So, thanks a lot, Jim, again. And go
Thank
to
you so much.
Jim's website and look at our website, too. That's louisehicks.biz. And also, you can go and subscribe. We will have all of our shows are archived, and you can watch Jim's last week from the interview we had last week, and this one as well at gvbstudios.com/show/ATP. Again, that's GVB Studios, which is for Global Voice Broadcasting.com/show/A
2P.
2P, the number 2. And you can see last week's show, as well as this week's show and all of our other shows. And everything is archived on YouTube as well. And that's Aim to Purpose Radio. Go on Aim to Purpose Radio and subscribe. There are lots of excellent shows out there that we've done.
Great archive shows. And one more time, the book is called The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. The author, once again, Jim Phillips. We want to thank you for being on the show 2 weeks in a row. This was a good one.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. I enjoyed being on your show, and I think you have a great show.
Thank you. Thank
and we
you so
want
much.
to have you back too. Once I read that other book sometime in the future, we would certainly like to have you back so we can explore this inspiration and influence our global audience even more. And with that being said, thanks again, Jim. And what I say every week, your power lies within you. Let it loose.
Until next week.